Mimdoc, which was the name the machine had forced him to use because Am amused itself with strange sounds, was hallucinating. Yet there was canned goods in the ice caverns. Gorser and I were very dubious. It's another shot, I told him. Like the goddamn frozen elephant Am sold us. Benny almost went out of his mind over that one. We'll hike all the way, and it'll be putrefied, or some damn thing. I say forget it. Stay here. It'll have to come up with something, or pretty soon it will die. Benny shrugged. 3 days it had been since we'd last eaten. Words, thick and ropey. Mimdoc was no more certain. He knew there was the chance, but he was getting thin. It couldn't be any worse there than here. Colder, but that didn't matter much. Hot, cold, hail, lava, boils or locusts, never mattered. The machine masturbated, and we had to take it or die. Ellen decided us. I've got to have something, Ted. Maybe there'll be some Bartled peaches or pears. Please, Ted, let's try it. I gave in easily. What the hell? Matter not at all. Ellen was grateful, though. She took me twice out of turn. Even that had ceased to matter. And she never came, so why bother? But the machine giggled. Every time we did it. Loud, up there, back there, all around us. He snickered. It snickered. Most of the time I thought of Am as it, without a soul. But the rest of the time I thought of it as him. In the masculine, the parental, the piratical, or he just is a jealous people. Him, it, God as Daddy the deranged. We left on a Thursday. The machine always kept us up to date on the date. The passage of time was important. Not to us, sure as hell, but to him. It. Am. Thursday. Thanks. Mimdoc and Gorser carried Ellen for a while, their hands locked their own and each other's wrists. A seat. Benny and I walked before and after, just to make sure that if anything happened, it would catch one of us, and at least Ellen would be safe. Fat chance. Safe. Didn't matter. It was only 100 miles or so to the ice caverns, and the second day, when we're lying out under the blistering sun thing, he had materialized. He sent down some manna, tasted like boiled boar urine. We ate it. On the third day we passed through the Valley of Opalescence, filled with rusted carcasses of ancient computer banks. Am had as ruthlessly with its own life as ours. Am had been as ruthless with its own life as with ours. It was a mark of his personality. It strove for perfection. Whether it was a matter of killing off unproductive elements of its own world, fouling bulk, or perfecting methods of torturing us, Am was as thorough as those who invented him, now since long gone to dust, could ever have hoped. There was light flittering down from above. We realized we must be very near the surface, but we didn't try to crawl up the sea. There was virtually nothing out there. Had been nothing that could be considered anything for over 100 years. Only the blasted skin of what had once been the home of billions. Now, there were only 5 of us down here inside. alone with Am. I heard Ellen saying frantically, "No, Benny! Don't! Come on! Benny! Don't, please!" And then I realized I had been hearing Benny murmuring under his breath for several minutes. He was saying, "I'm gonna get out! I'm gonna get out!" Over and over. His monkey-like face was crumbled up in an expression of beatnik delight and sadness, all at the same time. The radiation scars Am had given him during the festival were drawn down into a mass of pink-white puckerings, and his features seemed to work independently of one another. Perhaps Benny was the luckiest of the five of us. He had gone staring mad many years ago. But even though we could call Am any damn thing we like, could think the foulest thoughts of fused memory banks and corroded base plates, of burnt out circuits and shattered control bubbles. The machine would not tolerate our trying to escape. Benny leaped away from me as I made a grab for him. He scrambled up the face of a small memory cube, tilted on its side. Filled with rotted components, he squatted there for a moment, looking like a chimpanzee Am had intended him to resemble. Then he leaped high, caught a trailing beam of pitted and corroded metal, and went up it, hand over hand like an animal, till he was on a girded ledge 20 feet above. "Oh, Ted! Mimdoc! Please help him! Get him down before—" She cuts off. Tears began to stand in her eyes. She moved her hands aimlessly. It was too late. None of us wanted to be near him when whatever was going to happen, happened. And besides, we all saw through her through her concern when Am had altered Benny during the machine's altering, irrational, hysterical phase. It was not merely Benny's face the computer had made like a giant ape's. He was big in the privates. She loved that. She serviced us as a matter of course, but she loved it from him. Oh, Ellen. Pedestal Ellen. Pristine, pure Ellen. Oh, Ellen the clean. Scum, filth. Gorster slapped her. She slumped down, staring up at poor loony Benny. And she cried. It was her big defense, crying. We had gotten used to it. 75 years before. Gorster kicked her in the side. Then the sound began. It was light. That sound, half sound and half light. Something that began to glow from Benny's eyes and pulse with glowing loudness. Dim serenities that grew more gigantic and brighter as the light. Sound increased in tempo. It must have been painful, and the pain must have been increasing with the boldness of the light. The rising volume of the sound for Benny began to mewl like a wounded animal. At first softly, when the light was dim and the sound was muttered, then louder as his shoulders hunched together, his back humped, as though he were trying to get away from it, his hands folded across his chest like a chimpanzee's, his head tilted to the side. The sad little monkey face pinched in anguish. Then he began to hollow as the sound coming from his eyes grew louder. Louder and louder. I slapped the sides of my head with my hands, but I couldn't shut it out. It cut through easily. The pain shivered through my flesh like tinfoil on a tooth. And Benny was suddenly pulled erect. On the girder, he stood up, jerked to his feet like a puppet. The light was now pulsing out of his eyes in two great round beams. The sound crawled up some incomprehensible scale, and then he fell forward, straight down, and hit the plate steel floor with a crash. He lay there jerking sporadically as the light flowed around him, and the sound spiraled up out of normal range. The light beat its way back inside his head. The sound spiraled down, and he was left lying there, crying piteously. His eyes were two soft, moist pools of pus like jelly. Am had blinded him. Gorster, Mindock, and myself, we turned away, but not before we caught a look of relief on Ellen's warm, concerned face.